Play and Trade Guitars is giving away this Gibson Custom Shop Les Paul to one of you. How to enter? Subscribe to Play and Trade Guitars on YouTube, and we'll give it away when we hit 50,000 subscribers.
Hey, for Play and Trade Guitars, I'm John, and that's Zach behind the camera, and this is Play and Trade Guitars, where we play it and trade it. You've been watching our suite of videos on the best-selling Les Pauls from both Epiphone and Gibson, and Zach and I have gotten our hands on a lot of Les Pauls, almost every single one of them. And throughout that, you've commented, you've weighed in, you've watched our demos, and we really appreciate that. You're helping the channel grow fast. We're giving away that custom shop Les Paul when we hit 50,000 subscribers. If you've been in the market for a Les Paul, use our purchase link down in the description. You can also go to playandtradeguitars.com. Stay tuned to the end. I'll tell you my favorite Les Paul of the whole bunch. Drop a comment as we go, and let's see what you think of all these, okay? It's really not about price. Higher price does not dictate quality across the board, and I've really learned to not shop based on the price tag, but based on the feel, the sound. This is something that completely blew me away. I was not expecting this. I really love satin finishes. The Faded series showed up. I honestly thought I wasn't gonna like it that much. I ended up loving it. I thought satin nitro feels absolutely amazing in the hands. Little tech things I learned as we took all these apart, right? We have the difference between coil split and coil tap. You've got a coil tap on the Gibson, you've got a coil split on the Epiphone. Are they useful? Do you use them? Go watch those tech demonstrations where we talk about the difference. The other little tech thing I learned is that not all electronics are made equal because they've all got different pickups, right? But then there's also different configurations of hand wiring versus the circuit board guitars. And I think if you're someone who likes to tinker, you should probably look for the hand wire guitars because they're easier to work on. That was something that was kind of real revealing to me. Weight varies a lot and is important. We had Les Pauls that went anywhere from 7.5 pounds up to 10 pounds. And yeah, you know, they're made out of wood. Of course, there's gonna be some variance, but one thing that stands out, particularly on that Gibson Les Paul Studio, is that ultra modern weight relief. So those are clocking in at 7.5 pounds. So if you're trying to play 3 hours worth of music or 3 sets, or you're really looking for a workhorse, maybe that Gibson Les Paul Studio is actually a good way to go. 7.5 pounds on a Les Paul, hard to beat for the weight with that ultra modern weight relief. And then that brought up me thinking of kind of what, in my opinion, is the ideal weight for a Les Paul. And I keep finding myself coming back to Les Pauls that are probably just over 8.5 pounds to just around 9 pounds. In that sweet spot, you find the Murphy Lab, but you'll also find the Alpine White Epiphone Les Paul Studio, and a couple others that I really enjoyed playing that are right in kind of that 8.5 to 9 pound range. Probably one of the biggest things when you're shopping for a Les Paul is going to come down to that neck feel. I found out personally I'm a big fan of the 50 style thicker neck. A 60 style guitar will always have that slim taper neck, as will the Studio and a lot of other models, but I think I'm definitely sold on the feel of the thicker 50 style neck. A reflection on Gibson right now, after doing the factory tours, after playing all these brand new guitars out of the box, I can tell you that Gibson is really doing what Gibson does best, and I love their emphasis on traditional construction right now across the Les Pauls. I feel like they really went kind of back to basics, back to what they're doing best. Yes, all the prices have gone up, but at the end of the day, it's got me reflecting on the fact that a lot of the time when you put the money into a Gibson, it's gonna hold its value better or even appreciate. And that's definitely a big plus for Gibson. And when you throw in the fact that the quality is so good right now, I think that's really impressive. Another thing I learned personally from playing all these guitars, I am not a huge fan of artist models. I think there's too much of a subconscious influence in my head when I'm playing something like a Slash. I just can't get with it. I know it looks absolutely amazing. I know that that's a top seller and so many people love them. But in my mind when I'm playing, it's almost a little bit dangerous to me to have the idea of Slash in my head right here with those sunglasses and hat while I'm trying to play, and it like gets into my thing somehow. And I don't know, it freaks me out. Maybe it doesn't freak you out, but let us know. And it's funny how that works. I also notice whenever we feature an artist guitar, we inevitably get the comments, why didn't you play that artist? Why didn't you play more like that artist? Why didn't you play their songs? And it's like, well, apart from copyright and issues on YouTube, it's like, well, I'm trying to weigh the merits of this Les Paul, not the fact that this is the one purely based on Slash and all I'm gonna do is play, you know, Guns N' Roses on this thing. As I look at brand new guitars coming out of the box, a lot of people have noticed that rosewood looks a little dry from the factory. Oftentimes, yes, these guitars are brand new. They don't have the oil from your fingers. They've been maybe sitting in the box for a few months. Easy fix to this, right? Use a hydrate solution, bring that rosewood to life. But yeah, drop a comment. What do you think about the current supply of tone woods in general? It seems to me like we're probably entering a world where the availability of woods like rosewood and ebony, it's only gonna be less and less. So get your hands on a good one while you can. That would be my advice there. Another thing I've learned probably in the past year is how much you can get out of just the volume knob in a Les Paul. There is such a sweet spot when you roll that volume off just a little bit and you get that perfect Les Paul tone, and then you have that little bit of extra to push the volume, giving you that extra drive. Doesn't matter what Les Paul it is, the upper register of a Les Paul is just not very accessible. And something that happened, I got much more of an appreciation through this series on the Les Paul, a lot more appreciation for the SG. I really can now see and feel what makes an SG so special. And I know that they worked hard in the development of that, originally redesigning the Les Paul into what would become the SG. But that double cutaway is actually something to not overlook. So I've also learned through this that I have a great appreciation for double cut guitars where you can get all the way up that neck. And if you're playing a Les Paul, you're kind of playing a boat when you're playing in the upper registers. It's just the nature of the beast. It hasn't stopped so many great players, and it doesn't need to stop you. Just something I've really noticed, especially in comparison to something like an SG. Let's talk pickups. First of all, we've all learned, right? P90s rule. I think everybody has to have at least one guitar with P90 pickups. You can do that either with the 50s gold top with P90s, or you can even do a tribute, right? That has P90s in it. But I think everybody should own one. They sound fantastic. For the singing chime and kind of a bite that they have, it sounds great. Then it comes to pickups is probably one of the other driving factors in choosing a Les Paul. I'd say it's the neck shape and the pickups. And I was impressed with Burstbucker 1 and 2 on the 50 standard that we demoed, but I think my favorite amongst all of them, excluding P90s for now, just talking humbuckers, is probably the 61s. I really enjoy the clarity and the voice of the 61 pickups. The only exception to that, my absolute favorite, is the custom buckers that you'll find on the custom shop, you know, Tom Murphy. But that, again, I think is just kind of in its own class. The 61s are fantastic. And also, let's not forget how good the Epiphone humbuckers, I think, sound, those Epiphone Pro buckers. A couple of look things. I think I really like the double line Clusin style Gibson Deluxe tuners with those tulip pedals. I think that is like a quintessential look on a Les Paul. And if I'm choosing tuners for a Les Paul, I want one with those Clusins. That's another reason I like the 50s, Les Paul Standard 50s. A Gibson Les Paul must have a hard shell case. If it doesn't come with a hard shell case, you have to buy a hard shell case for it. I've owned enough Gibsons and Gibson style guitars that have fallen over and broken, and you must get a hard shell case. I actually thought it was kind of funny that the Murphy Lab has the historically accurate brown pink line case. It was the worst case of the whole bunch. It was heavy, it was clunky. I felt like I was gonna break the guitar every time I closed the lid. So if I spent the money to get a Murphy Lab guitar, I would actually take that case and go, that's very nice to have, but I would stick it on the rack and I would buy a more modern hard shell case to put that Murphy Lab in. That also begs a question as I look at this. You're thinking about what kind of money you want to put into a Les Paul, and yes, we know how expensive the Murphy Labs are, but are you actually playing those on stage? If you're going to put that kind of money, are you bringing it on stage? What is the ultimate workhorse Les Paul? I think the Les Paul Studio, like I mentioned earlier, is great because it's got the ultra modern weight relief and it's real comfortable if you're going to be playing 3 or 4 sets of music on a Saturday night or something, right? On quality, Murphy Lab really is its own class. I think they are absolute works of art. I didn't know how I felt about relicking in general until I got my hands on one and realized that every single one is unique. True craftsmanship goes into these guitars and really, really sets them apart. The other point I would make about quality is let's go and look at Epiphone. Epiphone quality is just absolutely through the roof these days. And with the exception of one 3-way switch, which was no problem, we sent it back and got a new guitar. The actual build quality of the Epiphones, I don't care where they're built, they are absolutely fantastic and really, really good value for the money. All right, so here's my picks for a few different categories, and then I'll give you my favorite Les Pauls from the whole bunch. So if you're looking for best value across the board, it is impossible to beat that Epiphone Les Paul Studio in Alpine White, $499 price tag. Everyone needs to own at least one Les Paul. And let's imagine you're somebody who doesn't want to spring for a Murphy Lab, let alone a standard, and you just want the sound of a Les Paul. This guitar will absolutely do it. I think #1 in value for your money, it is impossible to beat the $499 Les Paul Studio. An honorable mention to give to the 1959 Les Paul that Epiphone is doing in collaboration with the Custom Shop. Some great features on that kind of rival some of the American Gibsons. Best quality all around, woods, balance, voice, everything. Despite the high price tag, the most expensive thing in this category actually is the absolute best, but it better be right at that price point, because these guitars are starting at $7,500 and up, over $10,000 to $11,000 if you want the ultra heavy relicking. Now, how much the relicking has to do with the sound, really none, right? But again, this is a work of art that could potentially appreciate in value over time. And the feel of the R9 coming out of the Custom Shop, which is really making guitars in much smaller batches than Gibson USA or Epiphone, really is a standout in quality. My favorite personal Les Paul is the Les Paul Standard 50s. I like the thicker neck. And probably of all the groups, I did like the faded one that we had, but that gold top Les Paul Standard 50s was my absolute favorite guitar of the whole bunch. It just had that absolute magic. Sometimes you line up 10 guitars and one of them just has that special something. And in this lot of guitars, it was the gold top 50s Standard, which I just could not get enough of. I thought it was just a perfect guitar. Everything came together just right. And you should be on your hunt for one of those guitars as well. And it was just absolutely fantastic. And the Murphy Lab, I really have to say, is just probably one of the best Les Pauls I've ever played in my life. You know, I'm like you, I'm shopping for guitars and I'm looking at what I'm actually gonna take out and play. And the Murphy Lab, to me, the reason I put it in another category is not so much just because of the price tag, but I put that in a category where I'm probably not going to take that out and play it. So if I'm looking at guitars that I'm going to take out and play, I really, really am impressed with the Les Paul Standard 50s. That, I think, is my winner all day long. I love it. I'd love to know what your favorites are. Drop a comment below. And when you're ready to buy a Les Paul, drop a comment, send us an email, ask us questions, and when you're ready to buy, do so with our purchase link because it helps support Play and Trade Guitars and everything that we do as we're growing. Thanks for watching all these videos. We've got a new series coming up with Fender. So let's do it. Let's hit some Strats, some Tellys. We're gonna look at Squire, and I can't wait to re-rack this wall behind me with some awesome Fenders. So here we go. We're leaving Gibson territory for a while, but actually, what we're going to be doing forward is really just mapping the best-selling guitars from all brands. So let us know in the comments what brands you want to see, and we'll do a few here at a time, a few Fender, a few Squire, maybe a few Ibanez, Gretsch, you name it. You let us know what you want to see. We'll make it happen here on Play and Trade Guitars. Thanks for making this work, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care.